You all have been waiting for stablecoins. Today we're going to be breaking down what's happening in the stablecoin race from a regulatory standpoint. You do not want to miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Let's get into it today. I do want to thank our sponsor, iTrust Capital. If you guys are looking at long-term holding and you want to get into an IRA, well, 2024 is setting up. And maybe you have never explored an IRA, you should probably check this out with your CPA or your tax advisor. Go find out the benefits, because there are some huge tax benefits to getting into an IRA. Cool thing here is if you dive in on crypto or precious metals, all of those gains can sit there and continue to build without you paying taxes. So all you have to do is check out iTrust Capital, go to itrustcapital.com, use our link as, and you'll get a $100 funding reward. So it's very easy. Try it out down below. Let's get into a couple of news items today. I want to jump over to the first topic, which is headlines. And this, of course, is the U.S. stablecoin legislation that has been out there with the potential of approval. Now, understand there's two camps kind of fostering, stablecoin bills. Many of which you guys have listened to is Senator Gillibrand and Senator Lummis. They've put one out that is already in place. And then, of course, Patrick McHenry and also Maxine Waters have also been kind of negotiating, and that's essentially what we're dealing with right now. I want to go to a clip that kind of sets us up to where the Maxine Waters and, I shouldn't even call it that one, I'll call it with the Patrick McHenry stablecoin bill is currently. Listen in.
There's been more activity in regard to stablecoin legislation, specifically in the Senate. Senators Lummis and Gillibrand have put forward an effort. It seems Sherrod Brown might be on board if it's attached to safer banking for marijuana companies, as well as executive clawbacks for failed banks. What conversations are you having with your counterpart, Patrick McHenry, in that regard? Is there going to be an agreement?
I want you to know that Patrick McHenry and I have been working very well together. We have been working on this for 22 months. We have put together a legislation with a few more tweaks that we may have to put to it that I think is going to bring everybody together. It's been very complicated. We have so many entities that are involved. We have the feds, we have the Treasury, we have the White House. Everybody has had something to say, and we've had to recognize all of those concerns. But in doing that, in the final analysis, it's about making sure that investors and that the people are protected, and that we don't have, a stablecoin bill where people who are, basically the companies don't have the assets that they say that they have. We have to ensure that they have those assets to back up stablecoins. We are talking with the Senate side. We've met with Schumer. I've talked with Sherrod Brown. We're on our way to getting a stablecoin bill in the short run.
All right, so this sounds very promising. When you look at Patrick McHenry, we've covered this pretty extensively. Go back and check our playlist on a lot of our regulatory coverage. And this, to me, is one of the key things that is going to make, I think, businesses of all types, including a special type around recreational materials, Congress now could include this because one of the things that has happened has been the struggle of banking, because banking has been a problem in that business for quite some time. That, of course, I think is getting ready to change under this Safer Banking Act. And the very interesting thing that, Maxine Waters was kind of alluding to, which is very ironic, is her exuberance. I was amazed. She is actually tied into this now. She started to recruit a lot more House members, a lot more people on Capitol Hill that are looking at this in a positive way. So again, very good signs, I think, going forward. There is one setback, and that is that they're trying to adjust this bill to allow for recreational materials. So this has been going through their Safer Banking Act that has been pretty much the push. And I think that's going to be the big difference here in this one. I want to go to another clip real quick that gets into this a little bit more in detail. Listen in.
Well, Congresswoman, in the meantime, cannabis companies in California are driving around with massive sums of cash and cannot access the banking system. The Safe Banking Act has passed the House something like 30 times. I've lost track of the number. If not now, if not attached to this provision, as Kayleigh mentioned, and possibly by way of the FAA extension, if not now, when?
Now is the time. And I know that there may be some concerns with McConnell, but I am hopeful that we can overcome that, because you're absolutely right. We've got to have safer banking, and most of us who have been working on this support that.
So as you can see, there are a little bit of pushback in from the elder members of Congress. I think this is something, though, that you've got to look at and see, well, what are the stocks that are related to this? What are they doing currently? Is this in anticipation of it actually getting passed? Here's a good example with Aurora. They, of course, have been pumping in a very short period of time. If you look at just right here from March, mid-March, to where it's trading at right now, up 130%. Here, of course, is Canopy Growth Corporation. Also another one that has been pumping, also looking back at around mid-March to where we are right now, setting it around 200%. So there is clearly some activity that's going to be related to this stablecoin regulation that we're going to see going forward. I want to go over to a topic that Nancy Mace is talking about, of why this will work and what the chances are to get this passed. Listen in.
I would love to see Schumer move it forward. The question is, what does Mike Johnson do? What does Speaker Johnson do?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that Republicans that represent purple districts overwhelmingly support SAFE and then some. And so if Republicans want to keep the House, it's a good bill to have on the floor. Conservatives can vote no all day long. The rest of us can vote for our districts, which would be to support SAFE. And that there are votes in the House to pass SAFE. It's just a matter of what the leadership will allow to the floor. I overwhelmingly support it, as do a number of Republicans that represent purple swingish kind of districts like ours.
Right now, this industry employs as many as 500,000 jobs. Mm-hmm. In the event that we receive rescheduling, you could have another 100,000 jobs basically added to the overall industry. So as you said, this is something that we could tax, which states badly need right now. And it is a big economic engine. And then you talk about, President Biden's State of the Union address, all the topics that he discussed on social media, they got some interest, but the topic of cannabis outweighed a lot of those other topics by 10 times. So is the conversation being brought up enough? Are people aware and educated enough for the economy?
I don't think members of Congress are educated enough. They're too stubborn and set in their ways, and they're afraid to be primaried. I remember last cycle 2 years ago, the first ad they did on me was an anti-cannabis ad. Guess what? My district supports cannabis. I mean, read the room. I don't see rescheduling as being an issue, whether it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump as president. It seems like both presidents support a rescheduling to Schedule 3 would presumably be the answer.
All right, so as you can see, there's some economic windfall here that's coming down the pipe, and it could relate to stablecoins. Remember, there's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines from these companies that have been out there for quite some time, as well as economic growth. So a lot definitely on the line here for sure. This next clip goes into Senator Lummis around the differences of her bill, because there are some variations between the two bills for stablecoins, and which one might end up being the one that gets passed through the House and into the Senate. Listen to this clip.
Well, we're waiting to see what the McHenry Waters bill looks like. And so Senator Gillibrand and I decided to put our work product out while we're still waiting, so the industry could see it and comment on it and react to it. We're hoping that will expedite the completion of their work so we can marry the two bills and then move forward in 2024.
I've read some of the reactions from folks in the industry on Twitter. Some are thinking that it's a little bit restrictive when they look at the operational and reserve requirements. What's your response to that?
Well, we decided to put out one-on-one reserves. So this is not like a bank where they have fractional reserves. Recognition and response to the Terra Luna and other matters that have caused concern within the Congress. We also, in the Senate bill, do not allow algorithmic stablecoin. So I can see why the industry would look at this and say, wow, that's really restrictive. We kind of wanted to start there, lay the product on the table for comment, and we'll begin considering comment immediately. They can see that we pulled in the FDIC statutes on conservatorships and receiverships. So if there is an insolvency in a U.S. regulated company. There's a process for winding it down. So we want them to know we've really considered safeguards.
So this is interesting. I think the layout of these two bills probably will end up meeting in the middle. We'll see some benefits of each kind of constructed within it. But it's just, it's a little bit random, I think, when you look at the kind of reserves that are in play. And if you look at this, believe me, once we get to stablecoins in a regulatory state, the likelihood of banks coming into this, you can bet on the fact that we will see a scenario playing out to where we see fractional reserves coming in on this, because of the banks will pretty much force Wall Street's hand and also DC's hand. But at the same time, companies like USDC, Circle, whether it's Tether, or we start to see other stablecoins, which I think there will be several playing into it. We'll talk about Wyoming in just a second. But USDC versus Tether is the one that I'm really interested in. This next clip goes into it of what Lummis is talking about. But listen in.
And so Tether, if it chooses to remain offshore, is happier with a different regulator. That's a business choice for them. But if they want the U.S. good housekeeping stamp of approval on their product, and we hope they will, that they'll come into compliance in the U.S., we would certainly expect Circle to. So let's say you're a U.S. consumer, you don't know much about Circle or Tether or a bale of hay, but you want something that is blessed by a U.S. regulatory mechanism that was designed to protect consumers. Now, if that were me, I would choose Circle over Tether or the bale of hay. I mean, one of the reasons I never would have touched FTX with a 10-foot pole is it wasn't based in the U.S. I mean, that should be a flashing red light. It's not that we're going to cut customers off. We're just saying, hey, buyer beware. Beware. You might be dealing with some company that is playing fast and loose, and that's why they have not onshored their business.
Well, I don't think that's really the real fact there, Senator. I think that they haven't onshored their business because there's no regulatory standard in place. And that's the big reason that we're going to continue to see those kinds of stablecoins continue to thrive. And remember, the United States is still a very small part, even though it can influence, I think, a large part of the monetary system, especially in crypto. It's still a very small part of the global economy, and especially if we start to see the rise of BRICS in a way in which they potentially could launch a stablecoin. We have to be very careful here as a country of how we're navigating this. It cannot become just the Circle Nation. I'm a big fan of USDC, but I'm also a big fan of open markets, and that's the thing that scares me the most, is that these open markets, as regulatory scenarios play out, because remember, if the U.S. does this on stablecoin, you can bet every G20 nation out there is going to do it. Then every emerging markets are going to do that. Stablecoins will just become like any other currency, the 170 currencies we have out there or so, that are going to become the new digital currencies around that. So I just think we have to be very cautious. If we want to think about innovation, we should open ourselves up, not close ourselves off. All right, so I want to get into another one. And of course, that is Mr. Biden himself, President Biden, promising some big changes, because this is a big part of how this might actually come together as a bill. Listen in.
As I said when I ran for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. I'm taking 3 steps. First, I'm announcing a pardon for all prior federal offenses for the simple possession of marijuana. Second, I'm calling on all governors to do the same for state marijuana possession offenses. Third, the federal government currently classifies marijuana as a Schedule I substance. It makes no sense. So I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to initiate a process to review how marijuana is scheduled under federal law.
All right, so timing is very important here of where this could happen, meaning this bill, along with the alignment of possibly even rescheduling this, recreational substance. And the likelihood is this could be one of the wins for the Biden administration if they play their cards right and if this actually gets done. So a lot happening right now politically. And I think this, of course, as always, is very politically charged when you're dealing with something like a stablecoin. Now, let's go further into this because Wyoming, remember, we've been covering this for quite some time. We talked about this. We've made some predictions saying we think it's going to probably be on Ethereum, meaning their stablecoin. Wyoming will likely launch its stable token on Ethereum network. This, of course, was done and has started being talked about here recently. But time is of the essence for Wyoming because this, of course, is going to get very competitive quickly. I want to go to a clip that gets into a little bit about where they're heading. And this is one of their lead executives talking a little bit more about it. Listen in.
At this time, no blockchain has been selected for deployment of Wyoming stable tokens, and no Wyoming stable tokens have been issued. One of the things that happened, I think actually the day of our last discussion, was that BlackRock launched its first tokenized fund called the Build Fund. It is on Ethereum.
For this token to be successful, expectation of redemption needs to be very prompt, if not daily, T+2 max. Otherwise, we are just functioning as other rails are today, and it's not going to be a comparable and successful offering.
Information outside of these public meetings should only be considered factual and legitimate if it is distributed through our official channels and our social media channels with the @WyoStable username on Twitter, YouTube, GitHub, and Warpcast.
Go Warpcast. I like that. So social media, third party, or I should say decentralized social media out there. Anyway, if you break down the proposal that Wyoming is getting into, I've got a few pieces of the PDF that, kind of outline what's been happening. But this, of course, is the table of contents, just to give you an example of what they were doing in terms of analyzing the blockchains. You can see all the typical ones that you will recognize: Cardano, Bitcoin, Near, Monero, account model layer 1s are in there, Avalanche, ETH, etc. Here's where it gets interesting. And I think this is going to be cool because we may have a plot twist here. And this is a good one. So this is breaking it, same document, breaking down some of the things that they want, which is EVM compatibility. And if you look at active addresses, transactions per second, stable market cap, stable token market cap, dominance, and then transaction gas fees. There's a few in here that start to stick out. You could look at optimism, of course. Now remember, this is pre-Denkins, so this is probably going to be much faster and cheaper. Then you look at, guess what? Solana, not on EVM compatible. Stellar, not EVM compatible. Cardano, not EVM. What is left here that could be potential? Well, you've got Ethereum, yes, large active, large market cap, but expensive. And remember that Avalanche is sitting over here with subnets that are, first of all, the fastest in transactions per second. And you think, oh, wait, the gas fees are a little bit high. But in reality, the subnets are no gas fees. So they could be the fastest and the cheapest to be able to transact on this. So is it and EVM compatible. So is it possible that Avalanche could be a dark horse in this race? So we'll take a look. Further into this, here's Cardano. Just to give you an example, some of the things that they do consider, and I want to go down there to this one section right there that says, does the SEC consider the platform a token of security? The SEC does consider ADA to be a security. However, the SEC is not taking any action at this time. Now, we all know this because of the delistings that we saw from all the exchanges. Well, let's continue further on down. What do they think about Avalanche in this same area as a layer 1? Same section. Does the SEC consider the platform? No. Very interesting information here, guys. Are we about to see a big move with Avalanche becoming a little bit of a twist here for the Wyoming stablecoin bill, which could start to set an avalanche forward on stablecoins being adopted on that chain? So a lot happening out there for sure. I want to go over to this last clip because this is important, that starts to look at Wyoming and why this could help the national or the federal regulatory alignment around stablecoins. Listen in.
This is a great time to turn it over to Mr. Chris Land, who is the general counsel in Senator Lummis's office, to talk about one of the key pieces of legislation that's now been put forward in the United States around stable tokens and stablecoins, which is the Lummis-Gillibrand Payment Stablecoin Act.
And I'm hopeful in the next few weeks that we'll see that proposal emerge from the House. It would enable the state to continue to issue the stable token, but there would need to be a partner with a depository institution or a trust company it would be a big win for Wyoming if we're able to get this across the line.
But my fear is that could potentially actually create a more difficult time for us to move forward with the Wyoming stable token if there is the power to prevent partners from working with us.
Yeah, I'm concerned about it, but I will say that there are many advantages in Senator Lummis's legislation that, in her opinion, outweigh the potential risks.
And we may have the Wyoming stable token in circulation prior to charters or a licensing regime existing.
So as you see, this is a race very much like the gold rush, very much like the Sooner land rush. It's going to be pushing out pretty quickly. And remember, the first movers always have a little bit of a market advantage out there. So could this be a state that has outsmarted everyone around stablecoin? Because it's going to take some time once regulation gets done. Yes, USDC will be there. Yes, we'll probably start to see a lot of use case in that. But imagine if we start to see something happening on the Avalanche chain for a stablecoin. Very interesting stuff right now. All right, if you guys are not tuned in and part of this channel, make sure and subscribe right now. Maybe you just caught this over on the podcast side of things. Jump over to the YouTube channel and make sure and get into our Diamond Circle. It's our own private group. You guys get emails. We'll update you on different, not only news that we're doing here on the channel, but also additional research and content that we don't put here on YouTube. Make sure, of course, follow me out there on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.